In this video, we're going to learn how to append data to a file. Okay, so in our last video, writing to a file, it's pretty straightforward and pretty simple. Right here you can see I've got the write read folder. There's those are my Java files, but that's all that's in here. I've created this project right here, and this project is basically a phone book app that will create a text file of whatever phone numbers I want to include. And in this case, I want to include Noah and his phone number and Lily and her phone number. So what that's going to do is that's going to create this file, phonebooks.txt, and then I'm going to create the file. So we're going to go ahead and we'll press compile, and you'll see this is empty. Once I click run, right there's our phonebook text file, and ta-da, nothing was in there. Oh, because I never uncommented out the outfile.close. Nothing's written. Try it again. There we go. So there's my phonebook.txt, outfile was closed, and so there's Noah, phone number, Lily, phone number. Okay, that's great. But then we say, all right, well, things change. Let's go ahead, and I want to add Madison and Katie. Okay, so now I'm going to add two more people to my phone number, and I'm going to press compile, and we'll run this again, and let's go check my phone book file. And now I've got Madison and Katie, which is great. However, I lost Lily and Noah, who were there before. So my phone book file isn't really good, because what has to happen is every time I add a new phone number, whatever was there was removed. So I might have had 100 phone numbers in my first time, but once I add one new phone number, everything is gone. Okay, that's what happens whenever you create a file. Basically, if the file isn't there, it's going to be removed. If it is there, it's going to overwrite its previous contents with whatever the new contents are. By the way, I want to point out to you that this would be an excellent place to discuss using JOptionPane, so you could actually prompt the user, enter the name, enter the phone number, enter the email address, enter the address, and you could throw that inside of a loop. But right now we're keeping this very simple just so you can see how it works. Okay. So our problem is that anytime we write a file, it's going to be overwritten. Okay, so let's go ahead and we're going to delete our file, and we need to do something different. What we really want to do is we want to take whatever's inside of our file, in this case Katie and Madison, and we want to add new stuff to it. Okay, so every time we do that, we want to add new stuff to it. So what we're going to do this time is we're going to what's called append. And appending data to a file just is what it means. It's going to take data that's already there, and then it will add to it. So if something exists, we're just going to continue to add to it. And to append, we're just going to make a little change in how we write stuff to our file. So let's look at what we've done so far. In step 1, we import Java IO. That stays exactly the same. Okay, so if you're going to write or append, you're still going to do step 1. You're also going to do step 2. You're going to add the throws IO exception. You need to have that. We're going to go to step 4. Okay, and we're going to notice that step 4 will stay exactly the same too. There's no change in step 4, and there's no change in step 5. Everything stays identical, except we're going to go from step 3a, that's why I said we want to call it 3a, which is create an instance of the printWriter class, and we're going to comment that out, okay, because that's what actually creates the file. That does the kind of dirty work of writing it to your hard drive and doing your file management. We're going to comment out step 3a, and we're going to go to step 3b. And in step 3b, instead of 3a, which just wrote to a file, step 3b is going to append to a file, but you have to do something a little different. So let's look at what we're going to do. We're going to take watch lines 10 and 11 compared to where we were at. Okay, this isn't too difficult, but you will make sure you write it down. So for step 10, we're going to do file writer FW equals new file writer. Okay, so what is that? That's again turtle or world W, turtle T equals new turtle. And then in our parentheses, okay, in our parentheses, well, phone book doesn't match. Let's take our phone book. And there we go, same name. So it's phonebook.txt and then comma true. So all this file writer does, this is actually what's managing appending to a file. File writer is, again, it's a little object inside of Java that manages the writing to and opening up files and writing to and closing and appending. Okay, so that's its job. And all you do is you just need to call it. And we called it FW. You could have called it anything you wanted to. FW seems fine to me. So file writer FW equals new file writer, and then in parentheses, and now we have the name of our file, phonebook.txt, and then notice there's a comma, and then true. If you didn't have that comma true there, it would still work, except for you would just create a file. So we want to do the comma true. That's what's going to append data to the file. The next line is the same line as before. Print writer out file, which hasn't changed, equals new print writer, which is exactly the same up here, except for instead of using our text file, which we've already used in our print writer, we're just going to do FW. That just tells in the print writer to call file writer, and file writer is going to use the file that's created. Okay, so that's the setup. 3A or 3B. Create an instance of the file, just continually create it, or append data to an existing file. What happens is whenever you run these two, though, is pretty amazing. So first, notice that whenever we append to a file or create a file, if the file does not exist, it will write it. Okay, so we're going to compile and we're going to run. And even whenever we append, the file wasn't there, there was nothing to append to, but Java doesn't have a problem with that. It says, okay, well, there's no file to append there, I'm just going to create it. And whenever we create it, there's Madison and Katie. And you say, okay, well, that's just like before. What's the difference? Right now, there is no difference. However, let's change that Madison and Katie back to Noah and Lily. So if we put those two names back in there and replace them, we'll compile and run that. And remember, in the old way, whenever we just created the file, we would just have a file now that said Noah and Lily. We'd only have two names here. But when we open this, now we've appended. Katie and Madison are still there, but Noah and Lily have been added. We can even add Scott right here. And we'll go File, Save. And then we'll close it. And then if we run this again and look at our phone file, you'll see there's Katie and Madison still sitting there. There's Noah and Lily. And then there's Scott that I typed in, and Noah and Lily were added again. Why? Because they were added twice because I clicked run twice. And that's the difference between appending a file and just creating the file. Typically, under most circumstances, you'll probably want to append. If you're just keeping track of maybe one high score, and that one high score was the only thing you were watching and that was always going to change, then you could get away with creating a file. But typically, I would think you're probably going to do more appending than just creating the file.